Good evening and welcome to Spooky Southcoast. Tim Weisberg, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa and science advisor Matt Moniz. Stephanie Burke is off this evening. Eventually we'll get everybody all in here together for a show. Won't be this week, won't be next week. I'll be at Salem Con, so we'll have a pre-recorded version of the show. But then maybe the week after that, maybe the gang will all be here.
I may be in Florida.
Moniz, I forgot, is traveling then. So, I don't know, maybe sometime in June of 2018. We'll get everybody back together. But we're a busy crew. What can I say? We have a lot of things on the table, and we have a lot on the table for you tonight. We are here to talk about the paranormal, as we are each and every Saturday night. And a little bit later on, we will be joined by some members of the Tennessee Wraith Chasers. You know them as the team behind the hit Destination America program, Ghost Asylum. So a couple of the guys will be calling in to join in. They're on a little break from filming this weekend. They are working on filming some of the future episodes of Season 2, but the first half of Season 2 debuts tomorrow night on the Destination America network. So we'll talk to them about that, and we'll let you know there's a little bit of a Spooky Crew connection to that as well. So we'll talk about that. I think we can reveal it. I haven't been given official permission, but at this point, whatever. At this point, I'm just going to let everybody know. So we'll do that a little bit later on. Also tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of other topics. One of the things that we want to discuss, I mentioned this morning on my Saturday morning program, which if you are not listening to Saturdays from 6 to 9 a.m., you really should be, because it gets lonely in here when it's just Greg and I talking to each other. So feel free to tune in and call in on that program as well. But on that one, we don't really focus on paranormal topics. We talk about a variety of different things, and we were discussing today being the anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King. And I had laid it out there that if anybody wanted to call in and talk about the impact of Dr. King and what he did for America and what he did for his role in history, his historical role in American history. But I wanted everybody to kind of leave the conspiracy theories aside during the morning show, because I felt like that was more of a time for reverence and remembrance than it was for nitpicking some of these conspiracy theories. But we can do that a little bit later on tonight. Spooky Southcoast, of course, part of what we do is we talk about conspiracies. And as I mentioned this morning on the air, every year we talk about the JFK assassination around the time of its anniversary. And every year those end up being one of our most downloaded shows. It's a topic that people want to hear about. It's a topic that people continue to debate to this day. And a lot of folks don't really know some of the stories about the King conspiracy. It's different with the Kennedy assassination. Obviously, the film JFK put it in the forefront of everybody's mind, but there's a lot of stuff out there about the JFK assassination. The RFK assassination, we know the Manchurian Candidate connection. We know the idea of Sirhan claiming that he was a patsy and all of this. Very similar to the Lee Harvey Oswald claims. So fine. We know some of the stuff about that. But with the King assassination, it seems like the conspiracy is, I don't want to say it's buried, but it just seems to be shoved aside, because we have an assassin that seems to have a motive. We have an assassination that seems to be cut and dry in the way that it was performed. And we have the simple fact that after James Earl Ray attempted to after he assassinated Martin Luther King, he attempted to go on the run. He was extradited back from England. So we feel like the story, the narrative is closed on that. But you know who didn't feel that way? The King family. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And also on a little bit of a happier anniversary note, I put this out there earlier today, and it kind of bothered me that this icon of my youth, this great pop culture symbol of the 1980s, people didn't know who he was. I changed my Facebook profile picture to him and everything, and people just don't understand who I'm talking about. But Max Headroom debuted 30 years ago today. That was the debut of the character of Max Headroom 20 minutes into the future, and that was that was kind of the impetus for a lot of some of the computer-generated characters that came later on. And the dirty little secret about Max Headroom that people don't realize is he wasn't computer-generated. They didn't have the technology back then to be able to create Max Headroom the way that it was. So it was actually just Matt Frewer, the actor Matt Frewer, in a fiberglass suit. Like the suit that he wore that you could see on the screen, that was just made out of fiberglass, and there was two halves to it. that they would connect over him, like one of your crappy action figure battle costumes there, where it just like connected like the tab went into the hole.
Yeah.
And if you're watching on Spooky TV right now, that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't have the sound up, I'm talking about like how action figure suits connected. That's what this means. Right. Anyway. So the two pieces would connect, and then they would have like the plastic hair piece, and everything else was all makeup, and the natural angles of Matt Frewer's face is what made it look that way. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well, because I think that kind of put CGI and cyberpunk mentality into the mainstream in the 1980s, when everything was very, the technology was there, technology was growing, but everything was very consumptive in the 80s. When
there was a lot of consumption going on in the 80s.
But that was what it was. It was more about being the consumerist that was buying all these toys than really knowing what to do with them. Like now we have an infinite amount of technology these days, but people are figuring out what makes it work, and they're finding new ways to adapt it, and people are more technologically savvy. Back in the 80s, we were just kind of taking what you were giving us. You would give us our Apple IIe, and we'd put it at home on the table, and we would just use it for what you told us the Apple IIe was supposed to be for. But there was this subculture of people that was saying, wait a minute, I think we can take this further. And I'm sure, Moniz, you knew a lot of these people back then. But they were the ones that were kind of pushing the forefront of making us into the society that we are now, where people, now you buy a cell phone, and they're like, well, here's your stock apps. Oh, well, I'm going to root the phone because I want to be able to do more with it. So I think that we'll talk a little bit about that and the lasting impact of Max Headroom later on. And that'll be the last time I do the stutter, too, by the way. A couple of announcements to make, though. And I put this out earlier on social media. I can't believe this. We're almost at a sellout for our upcoming Legend Trip stage show, An Evening of Ghost Stories and New England Legends. It's happening May 22nd at the Blackstone River Theater in Cumberland, Rhode Island. We really have, like, less than a couple of families worth of tickets remaining. So you can pick yours up now for just $15 a piece by going to legendtrips.com. Don't wait for them to be at the door. Because I don't think there's going to be any at the door. But if somehow there is, there'll be $20. But absolutely 100% you need to get your tickets in advance if you would hope to attend that show. And also, of course, as we mentioned before, we are filming it for a PBS documentary. We met last week for the first meeting of the stage show to discuss what's going on and to discuss like what our vision is with it, what Jeff's vision is and what the rest of us see it being and how it's all going to work together. And now we're having our next meeting coming up this week. So these are all being filmed as part of the documentary, and you'll get to see the process. But also, if you come and be part of the show, if you come and be in the audience, you could be part of the PBS documentary as well. So again, just get those tickets by going to legendtrips.com, where you can also pick up tickets to our next great investigative event. This is going to be a great trip out to Western Massachusetts, out to the Berkshires, which we went a couple years ago for the Houghton Mansion. Well, now we're heading out there to hit Ventford Hall, which is just an amazing location. Got a fantastic history. You might have seen it in the film The Cider House Rules. Well, we're going to be there for Saturday night, June 13th, and you'll have the opportunity to investigate the entire Ventford Hall facility with us. We'll have dinner. We'll have some lectures. We'll have a historical tour of the property and hours of guided investigation with some of the great new tools and toys in the paranormal. I know that Jeff will be bringing the new Connect system that he got from Bill Chappell. That will be there for people to try out and use. And we may or may not have Ghost Arc yet. I have to find out more of the details about that because there's some behind-the-scenes things with whether or not we can use them. So we'll find out about that. And if you want to get tickets to that, those are only $99. And again, we only announced this a couple of days ago. We put it out in pre-sale for our Legend Trippers past and those who have signed up to the mailing list. That's how you get exclusive access to these pre-sales. And we had a few days of pre-sale and then only a few days of putting it on to the general public, and it's already a third of the way sold out. So jump on this now because that's another event. Once we get out there next weekend at Salem Con, I'll be there. Jeff Belanger will be there. We'll be talking about Legend Trips with people. We'll be having some postcards out. We'll be talking about what events we have coming up. once the word starts to get out there through that, and then once we start showing some of these locations in the stage show in an evening of Ghost Stories New England Legends, people are going to be jumping all over whatever tickets we have to any events that are out there. So if you want to get them before they're gone, you definitely have to go to legendtrips.com, because with Legend Trips, of course, we raise money for these historic haunts, and to date we have raised, does anybody want to take a guess how much we've raised so far?
22,000.
I think you're pretty much right on the mark there. $23,000. Over $23,000 we have raised so far for the preservation of historic locations where we hold our events. So, and that's all of you. That's not us. We're just getting you in the door. That's all of you that have helped raise that money. So thank you for that, and hopefully you will join us at these great upcoming events. I'm a little terrified about the stage show, though. I'm excited, though. After having the meeting, I can tell you that I want to be sitting in the front row watching this show, because we've got Jeff Belanger, Andrew Lake, Carl Johnson, and myself will be sharing stories. And now we're all experienced lecturers. We're all people that will get up there and give you a PowerPoint presentation on the history of a location, or the a how-to on paranormal investigation. We'll give you some theories. We'll give you all that stuff in our lectures. None of that is entering it. Well, I mean, it may enter into that in terms of the narrative, but really, this is about getting back to the story. And this is about giving the story its due. And, of course, the photographs of Frank Grace, which will be the stars of this show. We're going to have those photographs front and center. And this is going to be like being taken on a journey across New England to some of these great haunts. And we were talking about this in the meeting. Frank has the ability with a photograph to basically tell the ghost story in an image. Which, how difficult is it just for us to tell the ghost story in a few minutes of sharing it on stage? But his image, it has the impact and it has the power to tell that story. So all we really have to do is kind of fill in the edges around that. So when you see the picture that Frank Grace took of the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast, for example, on the big screen in the Blackstone River Theater, you're going to say, wow, that is a haunted place. Let me know a little bit more. And so that's the idea of it. Can't guarantee you that you're going to be scared on the ride home, but I would just say you probably want to stick to the main roads and not take any of the back roads. So it should be a blast. Again, that's happening on May 22nd. Tickets are just $15, and then our next investigative event is happening on June 13th. And everybody keeps asking, what do you have planned? What do you have planned? We are trying to plan stuff for the rest of the year. We'll have everything there for your calendar, and you'll be able to decide exactly how you want to spend the rest of the year with Legend Trips, and we'll have it all out there for you soon. All right, we are going to take a break. When we come back on the other side, we'll be joined by some of the guys from the Tennessee Wraith Chasers to talk about the upcoming second season of Ghost Asylum. It's premiering tomorrow on Destination America at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You don't want to miss it, and you don't want to miss as we talk to the guys coming up here on Spooky Southcoast on the new 1420 WBSM.
Having fun is not easy when you have joint pain. At Southcoast Health, we understand. Chief of Orthopedic Surgery, Dr. Langworthy, and Dr. Ferguson, orthopedic surgeon at Southcoast, explain how they help patients enjoy life again, pain-free.
We have a very solid program.
This is a guided meditation on parenting. Take a deep breath in and let go of the time you and your son played basketball and you attempted to slam dunk. Or when you hit that piñata into your neighbor's yard. Let it go.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
A promise was made. A promise that hit the beaches of Normandy. A vow that captured Iwo Jima. A contract that weathered Tet. A pledge that stormed the desert in Iraq. An IOU that braved IEDs in Kandahar. A promise was made to America's veterans. DAV fights to keep that promise, so all veterans and their families get the benefits and support they earned. For help, visit DAV.org.
This is a guided meditation on parenting. Take a deep breath in and let go of the time you and your son played basketball and you attempted to slam dunk. Or when you hit that piñata into your neighbor's yard. Let it go.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
A promise was made. A promise that hit the beaches of Normandy. A vow that captured Iwo Jima. A contract that weathered Tet. A pledge that stormed the desert in Iraq. An IOU that braved IEDs in Kandahar. A promise was made to America's veterans. DAV fights to keep that promise, so all veterans and their families get the benefits and support they earned. For help, visit DAV.org.
This is a guided meditation on parenting. Take a deep breath in and let go of the time you and your son played basketball and you attempted to slam dunk. Or when you hit that piñata into your neighbor's yard. Let it go.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
We are New Bedford, the new 1420 WBSM.
Welcome back to Spooky Southcoast. Tim Weisberg with you, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa and science advisor Matt Moniz. And that music you hear playing, that is The Wraith by our friend DJ 4AM. And we play that because we have joining us on the line two members of the Tennessee Wraith Chasers. We have Brannon Smith and Chris Smith. You can see them both on Ghost Asylum Season 2, which premieres tomorrow night on Destination America. I think I just dropped Brannon off because I didn't lock him in first. Oh, boy. You know, and I'm sure you guys are used to this by now, Chris, having incompetent radio people that hang up on you all the time.
Actually, man, we're usually the incompetent ones.
I don't know. I can tell you that having watched the first season of Ghost Asylum and seeing the way that you folks approached investigation, you certainly have a different and a unique take on it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The way we like to say it is we take the paranormal very seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Well, that's absolutely the way that you have to do it. That's the way that we've always approached doing this radio show is, you know, it's seriously enough that people don't think you're goofing, but if you take it too seriously, they just think you're crazy, and then they don't want to listen to anything that you say.
Absolutely, man. If you're too serious, ain't nobody going to want to hang out with you, and we want to connect with people, get on their level, and we want them to watch the show and be like, hey, I'd love to go hang out with those guys, not just, you know, we want to sit here and watch these guys for an hour.
And Brandon, I apologize for hanging up on you, but thank you for calling back in, and I promise that no more technical issues the rest of the show, fingers crossed. So when the first season came out last year, I mean, it was a runaway hit. Just from the beginning, people were all over the show, and I know that the season finale was one of the highest rated shows in the history of Destination America. So Brandon, that must feel pretty good for you guys to know that people really like what it is that you do.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just have that kind of support makes us feel real good.
And we should clarify for people, too, that you guys have been doing this for a long time. I mean, yeah, this will be season 2 of the show, but you had Ghostland, Tennessee before that, and you guys have been part of, Tennessee Wraith Chasers have been going for a long time.
That's right, man. It's like the great Devin Allen Coast said. I mean, it's been a long, hard ride. We all started out in different separate paths. We all had different paranormal experiences, and we were all kind of doing this on our own. And we've all known each other like my brother, I've known him his whole life, but, even Duke and Porter and Tracy Ray, we all grew up together. We just never knew that this all was a passion that we all shared until later on in life. And, we just connected and hit it off. It's been a surprise for us as well. The positive response and all the awesome fans that we've collected.
Well, and Brandon, I know that your role is kind of the skeptical one on the team, but it also seems like a lot of the times you make very personal connections with some of these spirits. Have you had a lot of your skepticism changed by the investigations that you've done both on and off camera?
I still am pretty skeptical of certain events, specific events that happen, I have been a little more open to the ideas of certain types of entities, I have been seeing a few more things as of lately, but you'll find that out more when the season airs. But of certain entities I've been a little more open-minded toward. But as far as my general attitude toward this stuff, you always have to remain skeptical. And even the stuff I believe I see, like I see a lot of stuff out of the corner of my eye, and you have to factor in just the psychology of your mind when you're in that situation. And I get feelings too when I walk into these places, but you also have to think, well, I'm going in with this predetermination. I've been told that this place is haunted, so that's affecting my psychology automatically. So yeah, you gotta have to take that stuff into play.
Yeah, and that's what's different about with Ghost Asylum is you're going into places, it's not like dealing with somebody's personal haunting. It's not like dealing with somebody's home where they feel like they're suffering some sort of paranormal affliction. And I'm sure that you have taken on those cases off camera when you've needed to. But with Ghost Asylum, Chris, you guys are focusing on locations that have, paranormal aside, some really tragic stories attached to them.
Absolutely, man. The worst of the worst. I mean, we like to go into these places because, like you said, there aren't any personal, there's nothing personal about it. I mean, nobody's living there. It's not inhabited. There aren't any of those personal connections, so we don't have to worry about stirring things up per se. So to us, it's kind of like these first couple of seasons, we just want to go to these places to test out some of these experiments that we've always wanted to test, in this field. We don't really know what these things are. I mean, and some people look at us like some of the things that we do, these traps, or, they're more like transportation devices. They probably look at them and are like, man, these guys are crazy. This is nuts. This is hokey and silly. But, I mean, if you think about it, the whole paranormal is unknown, so why not try these hokey things? Why not? I mean, whenever the first EVP came around, I'm sure they said the same thing, but now in the paranormal world, it's streamlined.
Well, and Brannon, being skeptical, I mean, what was your thought process when the idea first came up? Let's try and catch a ghost. What was the first thing that you thought of, being skeptical of the whole existence of them to begin with?
Well, I like to also just say, as far as the paranormal in general, I'm a Christian man, I believe that a person, when they die, they go to heaven or hell. But, as a paranormal as a whole, I'm not skeptical of, I believe in it. But, specific events, I'm kind of skeptical of if they're paranormal or not, And capturing an entity, when it comes to that, I kind of look at it in the terms of physics, I mean, what we're trying to do, we're basically trying to capture what's called free roaming energy. Let's imagine these ghosts as just like these energy entities that just, and we're trying to capture that electrical energy or that heat energy, and we're trying to keep it contained as long as we can. And that's kind of the basis of a lot of these traps, I believe.
So really, I mean, you're not expecting to be able to capture this thing and hold on to it and keep it for any given amount of time. You're just trying to just momentarily lock it down during its existence out there and momentarily being able to capture it and take a closer look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that, yeah.
Although I will say I find it very interesting that, you're doing this not with some of the most high-tech scientific equipment that you can find out there. You're trying to build these traps with everyday things that common paranormal investigators could try and duplicate if they wanted to. And is that more out of necessity, or is that more just how you guys have always worked, Chris, to be able to, I don't want to say to rig things up, but really that's what you're doing. You're just creating your own rigs rather than investing, millions of dollars into equipment.
Absolutely, man. I mean, your average paranormal investigator out there can't afford all this stuff. We couldn't either. So we want to make it, we want other people to try things, and we want to show them that, hey, you can do this stuff. You just got to, do a little bit of homework. And, we like to take a little bit of the old school stuff, some of the, old beliefs. Sometimes we'll mix in a little old Native American stuff or, some whatever from back in the day, and then we'll get Brannon to give us the physics part of it. We try to kind of put that together and see if, we can get some responses out of it. So we want people to feel like, they can go out here to the hardware store and just use some, everyday kind of scientific stuff put your head in it and put your heart in it, and be able to try to communicate with these things and maybe help them, whatever they are.
I will say I was slightly impressed by being able to build a ghost trap out of a screen door, because I can't even fix the screen door that is only to let living people into my house. So, I mean, I haven't had a working handle on that thing in 10 years. So the fact that you guys are using that to build a trap and try to contain some of this energy is pretty interesting to me. I'll ask each of you. I mean, obviously, with this upcoming second season, some of the locations have been revealed in the press releases that were out there. We know that tomorrow, the season premiere will take place at Rolling Hills Asylum in East Bethany, New York. And I know that there's some other locations that have been revealed in terms of investigating the Bell Witch Cave, Penhurst Asylum. Where is it out of the first season and what you've filmed so far in the second season, Brannon, that's your favorite location?
I mean, I guess Penhurst is a pretty cool place. I guess, of course, as you know, you'll probably have to watch the episode to really see it. But, let's just say something really kind of interesting happened to me and Chasey in a hallway. We've never had something like that happen before in front of our eyes. So you'll have to tune in and see exactly what it is. But
wow,
pretty cool.
And that's one of the locations that I worked. I'm just going to reveal a little bit here. I worked on the second half of the season as an associate producer and researcher. So I've investigated some of the ghost stories associated with the later episodes. And when I'm hearing these stories and when I'm collecting these stories, I'm thinking to myself, TWC, these are the guys that are going to be able to put the human face on some of these cases. What just might be a legend to a lot of people, you're going to be able to kind of humanize that and be able to share with people the emotion involved in that. And Chris, is that something that is a conscious effort from you guys being on camera, or is that just something of who you are as people and the chemistry that you have to tell the human side of these ghost stories?
No, absolutely, man. You hit the nail right on the head. That's something that we really want to do. Like my brother, I have a kind of a weird belief as a paranormal investigator. We're also Christians. We were born and raised missionary Baptists, so I don't necessarily believe that people are what we're talking to, but I do believe that their energy lingers. It's a scientific fact. Energy never dies. It just changes forms. We as people are built up as energy. And, as you were saying about the connections, we went to St. Albans, and this place had a very tragic story. There was a young girl who was murdered, and her body was never found, yet they caught the killer. I believe this is the way it went. He confessed, but they never could have any substantial evidence to prove it or something. And so, her body was never found, and we got some amazing responses when we were in there trying to connect with this girl. And it just goes to show you that there is something lingering that is intelligent, that wants to help us put the pieces together. And we also find that you'll find a lot of times in these asylums and prisons and things of this nature, you'll find these good spirits, but then there also seems to be some sort of battle, or there's some friction between a good spirit and a bad spirit, maybe something's holding them back. And, that's kind of what we had going on there and at a lot of these other places. So I definitely think that, after people are gone and these mysteries are still hanging around, we as paranormal investigators can try and further our knowledge of what actually happened.
And that case, the St. Albans case, was fascinating to me because, as you mentioned, this young woman was killed and her body was never found, or she disappeared, and they assumed she was killed. Her body was never found. And it's not like this is a story that happened in 1937 and there's a failure of the news media of the time to report on. This happened in the 1980s. And still, it seems like somehow this case slipped through the cracks, almost like there was some sort of darker force kind of maneuvering everything over it.
Yeah, and there's still a police officer, Andy Wilburn. He's still working on this case still today, man. He's still trying to get the pieces put together, and he's still really passionate about the case, even though it happened so long ago. But I'm telling you, man, we got some really cool responses at that case. I can't give it away, but you're just gonna have to watch the episode. But we were really hitting hard on that young girl and what happened to her, and we got some pretty phenomenal responses, and we captured some great evidence that we'll be able to share with all the viewers out there, and they're kind of going to be scratching their head afterwards like, wow, that just happened.
And I can tell you that I had the opportunity in working with the show of being able to kind of review some of your process of investigation. And I heard some of your EVP sessions, and you make a very conscious effort. You know, some people, when they go into these locations, will start yelling and screaming. Some people will start, demanding answers. And you make a very conscious effort, like my co-host Matt Moniz does, to make a connection with these spirits as people. And I know that, Porter is very strong in that, in being able to look at the fact that these were once upon a time people just like you and I, and we need to treat them as such. It seems like that overall respect is something that carries through in all that you guys do, whether it be the investigation or just working together as a team or even putting together this show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We believe in the golden rule, treat others as you'd like to be treated. And, we try to do that, like you said, in every aspect of our lives, even in the paranormal, because, like I said before, we don't know what these things are. I mean, in my mind, I still haven't figured it out. So until I do, they're not all evil. They're not all demons. So why not be respectful? They obviously seem to be intelligent. They know what we're saying. So, I mean, we need to give them that respect.
And Brandon, I know, being kind of the inventor of the group and being the one who helps with a lot of this, bringing about a lot of this technology, you guys are going to be using some new tech in season 2. What can people look forward to seeing?
We're going to be using all kinds of new equipment. There's one that's been really pushed out there. They call it the Ghost Arc. It's sure you've seen it and heard about it on Twitter and Facebook. It's brand new equipment that's never been used before by anyone. It's still in the process of being made. From my understanding, it's something that's it's a little bit of everything in one. It's like a recorder and EMS meter, temperature gauge. Chris even said in one tweet that it would replace a lot of my vest equipment. Of course, I'll always find new things to put in my vest, but it's going to help out with that and help clear out a lot of pockets in my vest, because it's going to be a lot of equipment in one, basically.
Right.
Well, the only thing you're going to find in Brandon's vest is like 5-hour energies, Red Bulls, and like treats.
Yeah, I was going to say,
snacks.
Less EMF detectors, more candy bars, right? That's what those things are really made for. And well, we've been talking about the Ghost Arc for quite a while here on the show. We had the developers on with us, and we've been participating. We're going to actually be some of the beta testers out in the field for it. And I know that you're going to be the first television program to use it. And I don't think, like you said, it's still in development, so you haven't had your hands on it yet. But I don't know, Brandon, have you heard the announcement that came out this week about the microphones that they're going to be using?
No, I haven't.
They're focusing on infrasound.
Okay.
So it's going to be really low frequency stuff, which is where a lot of the EVP has been coming through over the years. So that's going to be very interesting to have that combined with, being able to also run the Ghost Box and all that other stuff to be able to explore the infrasound realm.
That's really rad.
Some of those
rad,
places.
Man, we've used that a couple times. We used that at Canon. We go back to Canon this season to try and settle some scores. We break out a little infrasound, and then a couple other episodes we break out the infrasound. We've got some huge responses and some really clear EVPs out of that infrasound, man. I think it's a really good thing for this, because I don't know what it is about that frequency, those low hertz or whatever, but you can really hear what they're saying clearly, and they seem to be able to more easily communicate with us.
And I can tell you, too, that some of the episodes that I worked on, the stories that I collected, it's still resonating with me. I'm still thinking about them. I'm still, passionate about the history of some of these places, and I can't wait to see what you guys do when you get in there. Looking forward to what happens with tomorrow night with the season premiere. Rolling Hills is a place that has been on other television shows, and that a lot of people have had the chance to investigate themselves through different events, paranormal events. But I think this will be a new take and a new approach to it that only you guys can do. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that and all of the episodes coming up this season. And hopefully everybody keeps tuning out and tuning in and makes it a huge success. And season 3 will be on the horizon.
Well, thank you so much, man. We hope so. This is our passion. This is our dream. We have we have so much fun doing it, on the road and at these locations. You get to meet new people, see new places, and we're all about furthering the field, but also enjoying the ride, man. That's what it's all about.
I also I don't want to fail to mention either that you guys had a new face working on the show this season too. A new person working in the production side of things who brings a lot of paranormal experience to the show. Was it intimidating at all having Erin Ryder be involved?
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. She's phenomenal. I tell you what, nobody works harder. She's very accommodating. Anything we need, like, Ryder, can we have this? She's like, okay, I'm gonna check on it, and like in 2 days she'll have it for us, like sitting there. But yeah, it was very intimidated at first because I watched Assassination Truth. A lot of the guys did, and she was one of our idols, and we really love her a lot. She works hard for us. She gets in there and pounds the pavement, and she puts up with our crap sometimes. So big props to her for sure.
Well, Ryder's one of the only people I know that sleeps less than I do. I would send like an email at 2:30 and she'd respond at 2:35. So it's
she's a beast.
Yeah, it's
Beast,
incredible.
man.
And also, you guys can't complain about some of these locations that you're going to when you're like, oh man, this place is really dilapidated. This is kind of dangerous for us to be going in there. She'll be like, did you see Destination Truth? Did you see some of the places I went to?
Oh man, dude, we had that same conversation. Like, it's really funny to me because some of the other guys sometimes they'll get a little prima donna-ish, and we'll be all talking, and Ryder will be there, and they'll be like, oh my God, this place sucks, or there's this it's so dilapidated, we're breathing in this stuff, or we gotta cross this little pond and get our shoes wet. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about like Ryder in the Amazon or something, like sleeping in a hut, getting eaten up by mosquitoes, and like parasailing into try to find Bigfoot or something. And I'm like, she doesn't say anything, but in my mind, I'm like thinking she's like, these guys are some freaking women.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and looking forward to talking to you more in depth somewhere down the line, and looking forward to the premiere of season 2 of Ghost Asylum tomorrow night on Destination America. Brannon Smith, Chris Smith, take care. Have a great night.
Things, brother. You too.
Thanks, man.
Take care. And we will certainly be updating you with everything to do with Ghost Asylum going forward. Because again, as I mentioned, those back 8 episodes of the show, those are the ones that I worked on. So we'll be able to kind of discuss those a little bit more in depth when that airs later on this year. But man, imagine that. Imagine trying to come up with, Moniz, you've been doing this for a long time, paranormal investigation, and you've been just trying to document this energy as existing. Imagine trying to come up with ways to capture it. And again, they're not trying to hold a ghost, put it in a trap, put it in an ecto-containment unit, and telling people we can come and remove the ghost from your house. They're just trying to harness that energy in some way. And really what we do when we investigate is we're trying to at least harness that energy for us to experience it. They're just trying to go a little bit further and try and contain it for at least as fleeting of amount of time as they can do it.
Well, we wind up doing it all the time for other, what we'll call mundane reasons. The principles are the same. So what they're doing, according to theory, should yield some results.
And I don't know how much Ghost Asylum you've seen, but
None.
there's,
Sorry.
well, that's fine. There's, but there's, as I had mentioned, there's a home, DIY approach to it, a way that people would be able to replicate in the field themselves if they wanted to try it. Have you ever tried in all of your years of paranormal? I know that you have in the lab, but in terms of in paranormal investigation, have you ever tried to pull in something like that? Have you ever basically tied a key to a kite in a haunted location and tried to harness in some of that?
Oh yeah, I've done the the jiggle this or jiggle that, try and elicit a response, and I've tried using car antennas with various other electrical fields to try and generate electricity and make things appear and happen. It's one of these things. It's wide open, so there's no reason why it wouldn't work.
And a lot of people that watch these paranormal shows, they're looking for the investigator is just as important to them as the investigation themselves. And that's why sometimes we've, come on and bash some of these shows, and why sometimes that we've come across some of these programs where like, this just seems so forced. The team camaraderie seems there was one show, I don't even remember the name of it, but you could tell they just put a bunch of people together and said, okay, now you guys are all going to go out and investigate together. Like they had probably just met that day when the cameras rolled. And you don't get that sense with Tennessee Wraith Chasers. You know that these guys have known each other their whole lives. You know that they have that brotherhood. And to me, that is, as a storyteller and as a person working on that side of things, it's just as important to tell their story as it is the story of the spirits. But they're not about that. Not with Ghost Asylum. They kind of just want to tell the story of the location.
Well, like it or not, they're part of the story, being there doing the work.
Absolutely.
I mean, you go from observer to participant once you step across that line. And
they also have a healthy respect not only for one another, not only for the spirits, but they have a very strong spiritual base. As you heard Brandon mention, they are Christians, and so they have I think they call it the fist bump to the big guy. They all give a little prayer before they go out and investigate together in these locations. And, a lot of people do that anyway when they investigate. A lot of people want to get together and have a little prayer. And I've actually heard people now doing it and referring to it as that. So maybe there's also that it becomes part of people's routine then. I don't see anything wrong with that. If people feel like they want to be protected going into a location, sure, why not?
If it makes them feel comfortable, sure.
And I know, Matt, you don't have a TV, so you haven't. Have you even seen Ghost Stalkers?
I have.
Okay, all right. Through the miracle of YouTube.
Amazon. Yep.
What, you paid for it?
I did.
I owe you some money.
No, it's okay.
You shouldn't have
I
to
figured
pay
I was
for
obligated.
it just to watch my. No, you weren't obligated at all.
I paid for the first 2 episodes.
Well, I can tell you, and by the
other
way,
episodes I acquired.
We have about a minute left,
yes.
And we should probably let people know that on April Fool's Day, you played a little trick on everybody, and
oh yeah. There, as far as I know, there is no Ghost Stalker season 2.
It's still in discussion. Nothing has been decided yet.
Right. But I took it upon myself to kind of put it out there for a little April Fool's gag.
You played on the emotions of the Stalker Society,
right.
yes.
And I just nobody clicked on it.
Well, because people saw the picture and they just started tweeting about it and talking about it.
I was thinking that I did just too good of a job photoshopping that. Apparently, it looked really official.
I can tell you, I was getting all types of congratulations and all types of people telling me, oh, I'm so excited for you. I'm so glad season 2 is coming. Where are some of the locations that you're going to?
But it was a ruse. I apologize.
A promise was made.
Well, and that promise was broken. So that's we're kind of stuck with that for right now. But we'll see. We're trying to find out if we can make something happen with season 2. We'll let you know as soon as we do. But of course, season 2 of Ghost Asylum premieres tomorrow night on Destination America, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Check it out. They'll be investigating Rolling Hills Asylum. We're going to take a break for the news, and when we come back on the other side, more spooky South Coast on the new 1420 WBSM.
New Bedford news, New Bedford talk. This is WBSM New Bedford, streaming worldwide on Radio Pub and WBSM.com.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. Accused terrorist women update. First, on the Philadelphia mom accused of planning to go overseas to join Islamic State terrorists. From ABC's Ron Claiborne.
New details from the complaint reveal the Fed started monitoring Thomas back in August 2013. Authorities say she sent dozens of Twitter and electronic messages, once tweeting, "If we truly knew the realities, we all would be rushing to join our brothers in the front lines." And allegedly responding to an invitation to become a martyr. That would be amazing. A girl can only wish.
This follows 2 New York women arrested for allegedly plotting a terrorist attack. Former FBI agent Brad Garrett, an ABC News consultant.
ISIS in particular is extremely good at attracting women because they say, we'll give you a purpose, we'll give you a job, we'll give you direction.
On Easter weekend, the Pope's voicing concern about the killing of Christians, denying allegations of poor training and improper preparation, and seeking dismissal of a lawsuit by a nurse who contracted Ebola there, the corporation that owns Texas Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas. Details are released of its response to a lawsuit by nurse Nina Pham while caring for an Ebola patient. Too much is leading to too little in this case.
Pacific fisheries managers meeting next month will likely shut down sardine fishing off the West Coast as stocks continue to decline. They fear a repeat of a previous collapse that decimated a thriving industry. Now they're faced with warming waters off California. Fishermen are concerned that a ban would affect their catches of mackerel, anchovies, and squid. Much of the catch is exported to Asia and Europe. Meanwhile, some sea lions and seabirds that feed on small fish have been starving for the past couple of years. Conservationists say the only way to rebuild populations of fish is to quit catching them. Joan Bennett, ABC News.
Duke beating Michigan State in their NCAA Final Four matchup means it will take on the winner of the Kentucky versus Wisconsin game going on right now for the men's basketball championship. You're listening to ABC News.
Neighbor Pat Boone here. CNBC reports 30 to 60% of Americans are hiding cash and coins privately outside the banking system. Why? Because our money and savings, CDs, and money market accounts may no longer be safe. That's right. Today's unsafe banking world includes cyber threats, banking law changes, and spendthrift politicians, all of which may limit access to our own money. My friends at Swiss America have just released a vital new report free to the public entitled The Truth About Modern Banking, which explains 20 major banking risks we all face. As a bonus, they'll include a new Future of Banking CD. Why don't you get your free report and CD today by calling 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Be prepared for the worst while expecting the best. Call now, 800-289-2646 or online at SwissAmerica.com.
A cybersecurity bill in Congress would require businesses to trash private customer data and prohibit sharing it unless related to a cyber crime, says Senator Richard Burr, North Carolina Republican.
The Bipartisan Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015 is sponsored with me by Dianne Feinstein and Senator John McCain. It creates a cybersecurity information sharing environment that works much like a neighborhood watch program.
Once again outlining their faith's commitment to the belief that marriage is an institution exclusive to a man and a woman, Mormon leaders at their biannual conference in Salt Lake City. But church leaders have also helped push through a Utah law this year that bars housing and employment discrimination against gay and transgender individuals. Classic rocker dead. Bob Burns, a founding member of Lynyrd Skynyrd, who played drums on their first two albums, is dead from a car crash in Bartow County, Georgia. The Georgia State Patrol says Burns was not wearing a seatbelt and was the only person in the car. Bob Burns was 64. Reclaim Australia is a group holding events down under that are sparking arguments and sometimes trouble. Within the large crowds like this one in Melbourne, anti-racism protesters faced off against anti-Islam protesters.
Islamophobia has no space on the streets of Melbourne or has no place in Australian society.
This is ABC News.
More Americans turn to ABC's Good Morning America. So how do you get to be America's #1 morning show? Well, it helps to know what you want in the morning. And we know. Take it from Robin Roberts.
You want the news. You want it fast, first, and right on point.
Take it from George Stephanopoulos.
You want breaking news. News-making exclusives.
Take it from Lara Spencer.
We know. You want it all now.
So go on. Tell them, Robin.
Put some good in your morning.
With ABC's
Good Morning America. Good Morning America. Good Morning America.
Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
From ABC News, Tech Trends, a bright idea for bicycle safety from an automaker.
I end up getting nearly hit at least once a day.
New protection in a paint can. It's a common problem for those who ride their bikes to work.
I choose not to cycle home at night. It's a lot more dangerous.
But a new invisible spray paint called Life Paint makes whatever you spray it on glow white when headlights hit it.
You've just got to be as visible as you can, and that's the good thing about Life Paint, is it makes it very hard for you to be missed.
You can invisibly paint your bicycle, jacket, or your helmet to light up your wheel rims or yourself so drivers can see you even in the dark.
Putting something on that will make you scream out to drivers like me is a fantastic thing.
Some say they're not surprised it's made by Volvo, an automaker known for its concern over safety.
It's about sharing the road with other users, so it's great that a car brand has got involved to essentially help cyclists and help drivers in the end save lives.
But it's only temporary, lasting just a few days. With Tech Trends, I'm Karen Chase, ABC News. You may put a coat or a TV on layaway, but what about a vacation? The average family trip costs $4,800, according to experts. But the days of charging that major expense on a credit card and paying it off later may soon become a thing of the past. Most resorts, cruise lines, and tour operators are offering layaway-type plans to get travelers to commit to their destinations and pay for their vacations before they set sail or check in.
We are New Bedford, the new 1420 WBSM.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa and science advisor Matt Moniz. Stephanie Burke is off tonight. We will hopefully in a few weeks have the entire spooky crew together for
We should
sure.
at least like get together and have dinner or something.
I know. I feel like we're lost, not all being all together.
Right.
You know, there was a couple weeks ago we didn't have Matt.
Mm-hmm.
We had Moniz and myself, and then last week we didn't have Moniz, but we had Stephanie, myself, and you.
Right.
Next week it won't be any of us. You'll be here listening to probably just me on tape.
If it wasn't for Facebook Messenger and text messaging, we would never talk to each other.
I know.
Ever.
It's weird
Sad.
because like there's
We
questions.
should all get Apple phones so we can FaceTime each other.
You and I, all you got to do is step out on your front deck.
Yeah, but there's trees and
Yeah, true.
and yeah, and technology that you pay for, you know. But we we could still talk with. There's still FaceTime type programs for Android. We could Skype.
I think so. Yeah, we could.
But I just think that's kind of weird when like two guys do that with each other.
Yeah,
there's
it's
this,
even weirder when three guys. Let's just go on chat roulette. And then
yeah, that'll be so much better. And Greg DeRogers, who does the news here on Saturday mornings, has been, you know, we follow each other on Snapchat, and so there's always that little bit of hesitation moment. The first time you get a snap from another guy, you're like, what exactly am I going to see here?
Right.
You know, because Snapchat has a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in terms of mine, it's never lived up to that reputation. I've never put out anything dirty on it.
Oh.
But
pictures of food, I was guessing.
No, more like boob chat.
Oh.
But you know, I don't use it for that. I take videos and I promote it and I put them out there as like a way to have people follow us. Right. You know, we're trying to be more social media active. So we try to find different ways of doing it. And that's why we tweet, and you can follow along with us on Twitter at SpookySC. You can tweet about the show during the show using the hashtag SpookyLive if you have any questions or comments or anything that you want to make. And I want to thank everybody, by the way, who follows us on social media for taking part in my April Fool's Day contest there to see who could put out the funniest face. We had a lot of great entries. And I know that when you guys saw the post, you were like, he just promised a bumper sticker to whoever wins. We don't have any bumper stickers left. But in the process of doing my spring cleaning at my house, I opened up my liquor cabinet just to show you how much I don't drink. I opened up my liquor cabinet and I found a big stack of Spooky South Coast bumper stickers in there.
Nice.
So we actually have
vintage.
some left. I know.
Sign them all.
People really want these things, and I'm surprised, but, you know, if they do, they do. And people were messaging me like, did I win? Did I win? Did I win it? Did I win the bumper sticker? So my plan is I'm hoping to try and get out as many as I can to the people who submitted for the contest on that day.
Maybe we should get some more bumper stickers.
We probably should.
Maybe.
We need to generate income before we start spending money, though.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about it after the show.
Like, people
Maybe
are asking for TV shows. I'm like, we don't even... I mean, TV shows. People are asking for T-shirts. I'm like, we don't even have any right now, and nor do we have the funds to order more. You know, we've been trying to get trying to get Vinny to get on a pay-for-play type program here, but, you know, he's got so many orders.
A busy guy
yeah,
too,
he's so backed up all the time. But we'll see him next weekend at Salacom. I will. I don't know if you guys are coming. I know, Matt, you were going to try and go to the Southcoast Touring Comic Show next weekend, which is also here.
I might try to.
Because I'm sure the station would love to have you get some audio and stuff, too. So you could actually technically count it as working.
Write it off.
Yeah, talk to Jim Phillips about that. See if you can count that as hours.
Nice.
And I don't know what your plans are, Moniz. I know that you're pretty packed.
UFO conference in New Jersey.
In New Jersey? Whereabouts in New Jersey if people want to go check it out?
Can't remember off the top of my head.
But I'm sure, you know, you can get the details out to me, and I'll tweet it out and put it on Facebook, and so that way, there, if anybody's in the area and they want to go check it out, or if they want to travel down there.
Travis Walton's debuting his movie, playing his new movie there, Travis, and Peter Robbins going to be there. You know,
well,
just be careful when you drive through New Jersey.
Taking a train,
it's nothing but trouble.
I'll have Lucky drive.
How do you like your dog?
Oh.
You know what, though? If you happen to get picked up by the local police and you end up in the same courtroom as Digital Underground, worse things could happen. You know,
it was a rolling stop at a stop sign. That's how we got. That's
Is
how
that what
Chevy,
it was?
Yep,
I forgot.
It was. I don't know why I know so much about that movie.
Because you love that movie.
I do.
Taylor Negron, rest in peace. We lost Taylor Negron a few weeks ago, so.
Oh, that's sad.
It is sad. I can't remember who else. I remember Demi Moore was one of the. Who was the other woman in that movie?
That I don't know. I don't know.
I suppose we could look it up. There's computers right there.
Right.
But, whatever. It'll dawn on us in the middle of the conversation as we talk about something else.
Nobody ever looks up any Chevy Chase movie. They just go by.
You know how many times
it's word of mouth. Everything's word of mouth.
You know how many times I've gotten confused in my head about like some of those early '80s Chevy Chase movies, like pre-National Lampoon's Vacation. I've got a pretty firm handle on his career after the first Vacation movie, but it's everything before that when it's like.
Was Funny Farm before?
Funny Farm was after.
Okay,
that's 1986, I believe.
Fletch, of course.
Yeah, and Fletch I'm cool with. Like during that whole post, and Caddyshack stands out, but like. He did what's it called? Under the Rainbow.
A movie where he was sprayed by toxic waste.
Yeah, what was that one? Now I'm gonna have to go to the internet.
I don't remember where he got sprayed with toxic. I remember
Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
Yeah.
That was in the 90s though. So that one I had, but there was another one where the one. Is it Modern Times or something or jeez.
I remember the premise of
Modern
the movie.
Problems, or I don't know. Hang on. We'll
That's why we need it. We need an intern to Google things.
I know. Where is our intern? We were supposed to have an intern from
we just point in the corner and be like, Google bot Google.
She said she was going to come in and be an intern. We haven't heard from her. So let's see here. Modern Problems. That was the one. Modern Problems. But there was Seems Like Old Times with Goldie Hawn. Oh, Heavenly Dog. That was the one that he was in that with Benji, wasn't he?
Yes.
That was with Benji. Foul Play. These are all like the post Saturday Night Live movies. And then right after Modern Problems came out National Lampoon's Vacation, and that was followed by Fletch and European Vacation. So, but then he was in a movie Deal of the Century. He had a cameo in Follow That Bird. He was in Spies Like Us, of course. Three Amigos, The Couch Trip, Funny Farm. So these are like when you kind of have Christmas Vacation, LA Story. These are when you have like more of an idea of what he was doing at the time. But I'm just trying to see if there was like some other movies that kind of escaped us here. I never saw Snow Day. I forgot that he was in Orange County. I forgot most about Orange County. There's movies that I haven't heard of, like Bad Meat, Our Italian Husband, Vacuums, The Karate Dog, Goose on the Loose, Funny Money.
These are all Academy Award winning films.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So maybe he should not be such a jerk to people as he is now. Although he did not look well during the Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary, that's for sure. We have a call on the line while we're rambling about Chevy Chase. And if you would like to call in, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Good evening. You're on Spooky Southcoast. Oh, sorry. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
We're doing well. Spooktacular, as we like to say.
Yeah. With this being the anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination, first of all, I want to say God bless his soul. Second of all, I was just curious about the conversation that James Earl Ray had with his family, and what was it that convinced them that he was not the assassin? Does anybody know?
Well, in all the stuff that I've researched on it, when he was never actually firmly proven to be the sole person involved. He had always hinted at the fact there had been a conspiracy. So that doubt had been kind of in people's mind right from the beginning, in certain people's minds. And if you know anything about James Earl Ray as a criminal, he was a very incompetent criminal. If I remember the story correctly, this was a guy who once tried to rob a supermarket by having them lock the doors, thereby locking him in the supermarket.
Right.
Yeah,
with the
I
police.
think I heard you mention that on the morning show this morning, yeah.
So
do you think they thought that the government set him up like they set Oswald up, which I feel they set Oswald up? They brought him so far and just, made him the patsy. I do believe that.
Well, a lot of the idea of this, being a conspiracy came about from a guy named Lloyd Jowers in 1993. He was a white man from Memphis who appeared on ABC's Primetime Live And he alleged that there was a conspiracy between the government, the mafia, and himself to assassinate King. And that while Ray was involved, he wasn't the trigger man, and he certainly wasn't the mastermind behind all of this. Now, this was just a guy who had no credibility as far as the government was concerned, because otherwise, why wasn't he ever, brought to justice for some of these claims that he was making? But it got to the point where the King family did file a civil case against Lloyd Jowers and other named co-conspirators for the wrongful death of Dr. King. So even though they couldn't prove that he was involved criminally, they did sue him civilly for, I believe it was for $100 was what they were seeking for that. But the suit alleged government involvement, but no government officials or agencies were named or a party made to the suit. So there was no defense or evidence presented or refuted by the government. So the fact that they tried to incorporate the government into it, it was just kind of a name only. They didn't really pursue going down that road.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe King's family actually helped petition for James Earl Ray's commutation of sentence.
They did. Well, what they did is because
for parole.
What happened was James Earl Ray never actually went to trial. He pled guilty.
He was forced to plead guilty because of certain things, if I recall.
Well, because if he didn't plead guilty and he went to a jury trial, he would have faced the death penalty.
Right.
So in order to avoid the death penalty, they had him plead not guilty. And
no, guilty.
I'm sorry, they had him plead guilty so that he could avoid the death penalty. So in doing so, he waived his right to a trial by jury, and he was later petitioning to have that trial. And so when the King family felt like maybe he wasn't involved in it, they were petitioning for him to have that trial. And I don't even think it was a matter of thinking that he was innocent as much as it would be having a trial to get everything out there on the record. Right.
Yeah.
So
do you think that he was aware of what was going down?
James Earl Ray?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he had to have been involved because he was in the boarding house room directly across from the Lorraine Motel. His fingerprints were on the Game Master rifle that was used. So, I mean, he was involved, but he always pointed to the shadowy, mysterious figure named Raoul, who he said was the mastermind behind this, and he was the one that was directing him. And from what I remember, too, James Earl Ray was saying almost like he was being a CIA operative, and Raoul was his handler. That Raoul was somebody who was working for, not necessarily the CIA directly, but some sort of clandestine organization, and he was the one that was manipulating James Earl Ray, because what people don't realize either is James Earl Ray was a prison escapee at the time.
Oh, wow.
So it was easy for him to fall victim to somebody who said, hey, I'm from the government. We're going to keep you from going back to prison, but you're going to do us this favor.
Okay.
Especially where he was he wasn't the brightest bulb, in the box, so it was easy to kind of manipulate him.
Why do you think they used him specifically? Why do you think they picked James Earl Ray to be the patsy like Oswald?
Well, in what I know of his background, he was a known criminal, and he was a known bigoted.
So, like you said, he wasn't that smart, so he could have spilled the beans if he wanted to.
Well, but he was also known to be a bigot, and he was known to have issues with Martin Luther King. So
I think so. They checked out his profile first. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that he would feel this way, and he did have delusions of grandeur. He did think that he was, much more of a criminal mastermind than he really was. So it's not like Oswald, where they set him up. If you believe the stories, where they set him up right from the beginning, and they created this history of him being against Kennedy. Having him hand out pamphlets in New Orleans, but. It seems like this was something where they already had something to work with.
I see.
So
okay, thanks so much for the information.
All right, thank you for the call.
Okay, bye-bye.
And Moniz, we will explore this a little bit more, because if you look at the story, if you look at all the facts, they don't all add up. It doesn't add up to...
That's the whole point. That's what covert ops is all about. You mix a bunch of truth peppered with lies at certain points.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is what parts of this stand out to you as disinformation? What parts of this stand out to you as, this is where they're trying to throw us a curveball? Because we know that James Earl Ray was an inept criminal, because that stuff happened and was on the record well before the assassination.
If I'm not mistaken, that day, he tried to make his getaway in a stolen Mustang that he had.
On the day of the assassination. Yes.
Yeah. A very prominent, easy to recognize getaway vehicle.
But which he claimed was the vehicle that Raul provided for him,
Correct.
and told him that he had to take that car.
Right.
Just like he had to use that rifle.
And he had to rent that room. Now, what you're doing is you're setting this guy all up. And that would be the perfect way to do it. You're predicating on this guy's desires. He doesn't like King. So what I'm sure, if I remember correctly reading the stuff, this is going back in the early 90s when I started reading about this particular thing, what James Earl Ray was supposed to be doing was supposed to be keeping tabs on King, his comings and goings, who he went in and out of the room with. That's what he was supposed to be there, was, basically spying and, making reports of his comings and goings and the people. The rifle was only supposed to be some sort of like defense, or if there was something that he got an order to take it and whatever. And that was one of the reasons why supposedly his fingerprints were on the rifle, because he was constantly having to move things around the apartment, and that was one of the things that was in there. So, of course, his fingerprints, as he said, would be on it because it was one of the objects in the room. So,
Well, there was enough doubt in people's minds over the years I think part of it was because coming out of the 60s, people, and especially after Watergate, people didn't trust anything that the government was telling them. They botched the Warren Commission.
Yes.
That Warren report is so full of holes that you have to be the blindest person in America in terms of being blind to the facts to buy the entire Warren report cover to cover and not find holes in the story. Not to at least recognize, okay, this might be where doubt enters into people's minds.
like the clay shards parts.
Hell,
of it.
just the magic bullet alone is enough to make people say, wait, well, come on. I can believe almost all of this except for this part. This is just a little bit too much. So if you can create that doubt in people's minds, and then you can create whatever doubt you can create in their minds with the RFK assassination as well, it's not that impossible to believe that this third prominent figurehead of the 1960s movement toward progression in society, this could be also part of that. Because it's almost like if there had to be a program in place to kill the Kennedys, that program would also have to want to claim Martin Luther King as one of its victims too. Because
you're leaving out a third, well, other than Bobby Kennedy, there was a fourth one of that era that was also, quote unquote, assassinated. That was very big in, the culture of equal rights.
You're referring to Malcolm X?
Yes, I am.
But that would be, it's almost like that would be if this program existed that we're talking about, the goals of that program would almost feed more into what Malcolm X was teaching. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I do understand, but
they would actually be probably more supportive of Malcolm X behind the scenes.
But the problem is they couldn't control him.
Yeah, well,
just like they couldn't control these other individuals.
And that's what it all comes down to, is really you had people that weren't going to play ball, people that weren't going to, because if you go back and look, I don't want to say that Dwight Eisenhower wasn't his own man, but if you're going to be a company man for the United States, Dwight Eisenhower would fit that profile, wouldn't he?
Yet he was the only president that came out and said, watch out, there's all of this stuff coming down.
But he still seems like the he cared very much about keeping the status quo. He cared very much about keeping America on that path that it was on toward the Camelot that Kennedy envisioned. And a lot of that movement spreads back to the Eisenhower 50s, and look at how America was back then. It was before the country had its collective innocence shattered. And then when it does, and you're in this giant state of mistrust, that's a perfect time to take advantage if you are a part of this program. And also, what else do you have? Well, you have the mafia. Hey, I believe that the mafia could have had an involvement in the Kennedy assassination. Both Kennedys. They had every reason to go after the Kennedys. They're the guys that helped them get into the White House.
Correct.
And then the first thing they do is they turn around and say, hey, we're going to take you guys apart systematically now because God forbid anybody ever found out that you helped us get to this point. God forbid anybody ever found out the real truth about what our father did to amass his fortune. So,
what, illegal bootlegging?
And some of the other things that he got involved with, yes, but mostly the illegal bootlegging. We kind of knew, though, at that point. I say we weren't alive, but we kind of.
My grandparents were. They were friends with him.
And it was kind of common knowledge back then that the Kennedys were bootleggers.
Yes.
But some of the more involved criminal activities, I think, they were trying to keep under the rug. And they were trying to keep that Kennedy mystique, that American royalty mystique. And so the first thing they're going to do is they're going to turn on the people that put him in office, allegedly. Fine. I understand why the mafia would get involved in that. I never really understood the mafia connection with Martin Luther King outside of, unless it was kind of a systematic wiping out of that movement, that undercurrent of society. But I don't think that the mafia gets away with that if the government isn't aware of the fact that they're going to do it. I don't think that the mafia gets away, because really, you would think that if somebody killed the president of the United States, then every single law enforcement agency in the United States would do everything within their power to make sure that that person was brought to justice, and brought to justice correctly. And then if a piece of crap like the Warren Report came out, somebody besides Jim Garrison would stand up and say, hey, wait, this isn't right. And we got was it 1975, the House Select Committee on Assassinations. That's when some of this doubt really started to creep in about James Earl Ray. He actually, I believe, if I remember right, he testified to the House Select Committee. And that's when he said, listen, I didn't do this at all. Tried to get the trial that he wanted to have to be able to present all this information. Couldn't get it. Escaped from prison. He had a 99-year sentence, by the way, for pleading guilty to killing Martin Luther King. Escaped from prison, so they made it an even 100. Well, gee,
yeah,
that'll teach him. But but then it's these later years come, and we have Lloyd Jowers claiming that he is involved in this, which Lloyd Jowers' family claims, well, no, he was just promised $300,000 if he came up with a good story. He was trying to sell the book rights and all that stuff, and get himself booked onto all these TV shows and make money for himself that way. But anyway, so all this doubt is creeping into people's minds, and that was enough to get the Kings, and at least Dexter King, to say, you know, we do want him to have his day in court, because we want to have this information come out. And I don't think the Kings would have cared one way or another if the trial happened and the jury came down and said, without a shadow of a doubt, we think that James Earl Ray acted alone and killed Martin Luther King. They'd be fine with that, because at least then
it's closed
and there's the answers.
Yeah.
Part of the problem too with a lot of people, we talked about this a little bit on the Saturday morning show around Martin Luther King's birthday, but a lot of people don't remember the fact that the Kings don't really get along. They're not a big happy family, that's for sure. They have a lot of problems with each other, and there's a lot of issues with money. There's a lot of issues with the licensing of Martin Luther King Jr.'s image and the licensing of some of his speeches. So there's a lot of problems within the family that I think have kind of also prevented some of these answers coming out too. But I don't know. I mean, just with what we've discussed and what we've talked about, Moniz, what do you think? I mean, what was it, James Earl Ray acting alone? Was there a conspiracy? Do you believe this Raoul story? Do you believe Lloyd Jowers?
I do believe that he was not working alone. He had to have had some help. I mean, number one, what is he really going to get out of doing this alone? You know,
I mean, one more dead, you know, the way that he viewed black people is really, that was the defense. That was the case against him. You know, just one more dead black person.
Well, I mean, you're going to give up the rest of your freedom just for that? I understand extremism, that, you know, some people aren't thinking clearly, and unfortunately hate is something that humanity's dealt with all its existence, and it's not going to go away. No matter what kind of rules and laws you can try and put about it, it's not going to change, because human nature is human nature. But I think there was far more to what had gone on. You got to look at who benefited by having Martin Luther King dead. All right? That's where you really should start looking.
Well, and that's how it is with pretty much any of these cases. Who benefits? who ends up better off in the long run? I mean, a lot of people look at the Kennedy assassination, JFK, and they say, well, who benefited from that? Well, nobody benefited more than Lyndon Johnson, who, by the way, was not Kennedy's friend.
Correct.
Who was not somebody who shared the same views as Kennedy. In fact, they were opponents.
Correct.
They were both running for the Democratic ticket, and back then, it wasn't It was very common for the running mate to be the other person that you had defeated in primaries to try and connect, because it wasn't as easy as it is now, where everybody can tune into television or the internet or what have you and find out everything about every candidate from all over the place. They needed Johnson to bring in the South, which was opposed to a Roman Catholic guy from Massachusetts being president. So they needed that Southern bloc, and so that's why they brought in Johnson. And just so happens that John F. Kennedy's assassinated in Johnson's home state.
Several other factors that went along with that, yeah.
And so it just seems like there's always been that doubt in my mind that he had to have been, involved in it somehow. But and with RFK, you look at the climate of then and the climate of that, and the same idea, the same threat that you're going to get JFK and then some by having Bobby Kennedy come in, because now not only are you getting the Kennedy belief system and the Kennedy approach into the Oval Office, but now you're taking into it also, I mean, just imagine if Bobby Kennedy had been president. Imagine how much of we're talking about the America of the 1960s now, too. Yeah. Imagine how much of a free pass he would have gotten to pretty much do whatever he wanted. Because not only is he a Kennedy, but now he's got the sympathy factor on his side, because a lot of people felt like it should have been a natural progression from Jack to Bobby. And so you've got this carte blanche to kind of put in whatever programs and anything else you want to have happen. So the other side probably looked at that as saying, holy crap, the last thing we can do is let him come into office. Sure, we could let a Democrat win, but it can't be somebody named Kennedy.
No, I understand.
So, but I don't know.
What was going on right at the time when Martin Luther King was killed? What was the hot topic?
Well, what was it?
Well, it had mainly to do with the Vietnam War. And one of the things that, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Martin Luther King was ardently trying to get people of color to not be involved with the war, because they were in larger numbers being put into the more hairier situations, which happens in a lot of different wars. But he was actively talking about having people burn their draft cards and not, report and things like that. And that was messing with what the agenda was at that time.
One of the primary factors, I think, one of the things that need to be explored, I think, a little bit, is why he was there at the time. Why he was in Memphis at the time. What was going on? He was there, to give a speech, and he was there because of the boycott. Was it the sanitation workers boycott?
Trash collectors.
Yeah. And he's meeting with Reverend Abernathy. He's meeting with Jesse Jackson. These are the people who were around him and supporting them. And I think there was the false image that they were planning some sort of civil unrest with the three of them meeting together at the Lorraine Motel. And I think that is one of the things that they feel was a contributing factor, though they being those who push the single lone gunman theory, is that whatever James Earl Ray looked at them as being troublemakers that were kind of trying to cause him trouble that was going to have negative repercussions on the whites in the area. If that was true, I would have thought that you would have more of a Klan presence at that time. You would have had more coming out of the Klan. Instead, the Klan are like, whoa, we had nothing to do with this. They were immediately washing their hands of what happened. So I just think it's very interesting that some of the narratives that they put into this don't always add up to what should have been the climate of the time. But we're never really going to know.
No,
because all of the folks that were involved in this are gone. We never did get the trial. They did test the rifle. I remember when I was taking Dr. Melanson's course, that's when all the news had come out about the rifle being tested and DNA and all that stuff. And I remember even then, if I remember correctly, everything proved inconclusive still. So they're almost saying that it wouldn't have mattered if in 1970 something he had a trial. It wouldn't have mattered if in 1980 or 1990 something he had a trial. It's still, they would have been able to not change the outcome of what happened. So it's going to be one of those questions that we will always ask. And again, I'm sure it's something that we can revisit somewhere down the line. I was talking with Greg this morning. He said that there is still someone that teaches the political assassinations course, but it's not offered every semester like it used to be. So he's going to try and find out who that person is, and we'll make a connection and then hopefully bring that person on board somewhere down the line. I know that we'll be coming up in June on the RFK assassination anniversary, and we probably should. We have not done an entire show on that yet. We probably should, especially considering UMass Dartmouth houses the RFK archives.
Yes.
And all of the archives related to the assassination are there as well. So,
I remember talking to Dr. Melanson years ago, and very knowledgeable guy. And you're right. All of the material is there. All we got to do is just go down and look at it.
I mean, there's a book called Who Killed Martin Luther King, and he's the one that wrote it.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, he's no longer with us to share, but somebody has picked up that course in his stead and will hopefully join us somewhere down the line. Now, I do want to shift gears just a little bit, and I know that it's tough to go to talk about something as serious as the Martin Luther King assassination to go to something frivolous like Max Headroom, but today is also the 30th anniversary of Max Headroom, and I wonder if, I learned of Max Headroom through the Coke commercials and through the pop culture aspect of him. Moniz, you're a little bit older than us. I don't know, did you have a chance in the 80s to see the television show and what they were doing with it?
Oh, yeah.
So you know that it was kind of like a thumb in the eye to television networks.
That's exactly why I liked it, because it thought outside the box.
So we're looking at him, Matt and I, being a little bit younger kids. We're looking at Max Headroom as being this this figurehead of 1980s excess. He's everything that the 80s are all about. He wears flashy suits and Ray-Ban sunglasses. He has his hair slicked back. He's in front of this neon.
Max Headroom here with.
And he's just about everything.
This is my guest.
We wanted to be about.
I heard you were big time in the old pop biz. Well, I'm going to take that as a no comment. So, nitty-gritty time. What I'm talking about, and you're not, is that more people prefer the new refreshing taste of Coke over Pepsi. Sweating? It's true. More people are, as we Cokeologists say, catching the wave. Catch it if you can.
Side of Max Headroom. How did that sit in your mind? Did you think that was kind of weird to be using this character to promote a soft drink, or did you kind of think it was like a very tongue-in-cheek way of?
Well, that's what I liked about Max. Max was, the character was all about, wake up people, you're being led by the nose.
Right.
And that's, as you guys know me, in the 80s culture, I would be one of the people that would be one of the rebels. I wasn't about all of the fashion and
right.
The pop and this and that, and I closer to a punk style type of attitude. And that's what I liked about it, because he railed against it. You're all being led. You're all being little cookie cutters. Pay attention. You're being, led by the nose. And that's what I liked about the show, because all of the TV shows were all cookie cutter, all happiness and rainbows.
Yeah,
and
they were
Joni
all
Mitchell
3-camera
tunes.
sitcoms.
Yeah.
And then, during the commercial break, he's telling you to buy new Coke.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, even Max Headroom couldn't save new Coke.
Nobody could.
It just wasn't that good. What's funny is, looking back on it too, I remember, the Pepsi challenge. I remember the Cola Wars. I remember all that stuff, and I remember thinking, did I remember Coke being that different back then when they came out with new Coke? Did I remember it being that different? And I remembered for a very brief period, I actually transitioned over to Pepsi. That's how bad new Coke was. Not that I'm totally against Pepsi, but it's grown on me a little bit more than it had in the past. But oh my God, I still remember it was 1990, 91, maybe it was the 80s. It was probably the late 80s when they actually, 88, when they were actually out doing the Pepsi challenge.
Okay.
Remember that joke, by the way? Your mama's so stupid, she took the Pepsi challenge and chose Jif. But anyway, I was at Rocky Point taking the Pepsi challenge. They had the booth set up there. They wanted people to come and take the Pepsi challenge. If you remember, they handed you the paper cup.
Yep.
And you couldn't tell what soda it was, and you had to drink it. And you had to tell them which one you liked better, and then they would lift up the cardboard and show you which one you liked better. And I picked Coke every time. And it drove the guy crazy that I had never picked the Pepsi, no matter what he did. I always picked the Coke. I was like, I can tell the difference. There's a difference, and I can tell the difference. And he was getting very pissed. So finally, I was like, the only reason I keep coming over here is 'cause I'm getting free soda. Like, I don't have to go pay an exorbitant, I don't know, what was it, $3 for soda back then. Holy crap, $3? Are you kidding me? Highway robbery. So
so you could save the money for more clam cakes.
Oh, clam cakes, so good. But, I mean, I remember that as being a standout thing. And then I remember the other story, and I think I've told you this story before, Matt Koss. I don't know if I've told it on the air. I think I did when we talked about that Max Headroom pirate broadcast, but I think I might have brought this up. I remember going in Kingston, they used to have the Kingston Carnival every year, and we went to the carnival, and they had a big Coke truck, and they had all the Coca-Cola products and all the merchandise and all that stuff, and at the very back end of the truck was a gigantic television screen with Max Headroom on it. And as you walk by, he's talking. So I was fascinated by the fact that he's talking, and I was in my Max Headroom t-shirt, which I loved. It was an orange shirt, and it had Max Headroom on it. And I'm standing there just like watching it, and then he turns and he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, you, nice shirt." And I was like, holy crap! I felt just like the kids in the commercials, like he can see us, he can see me, and it kind of blew my mind. And it never would have occurred to me that like there was somebody sitting behind it that was like typing in what to have him say, or that it could have just been pre-recorded for anybody that walked by, and it just was coincidence that I was wearing a Max Headroom shirt staring at it. None of that stuff entered into my mind. As far as I was concerned, Max Headroom was as real to me at that point as Alf. You know, they were both like, they were my 80s heroes. And I don't think that it surprises anybody to listen to me now and to hear me say, two of the biggest influences on my life were Max Headroom and Alf. They're like, yep, that makes sense. That explains why he's both short and hairy and a smartass. So the other big influence in my life was Mac Tonight, which is why I eat a lot of McDonald's. Do you remember Mac Tonight?
Vaguely. I vaguely do.
I don't think you can vaguely remember Mac Tonight. You either didn't know who he was or you had terrifying nightmares about him. Do you remember Mac Tonight?
Sounds familiar.
He was this gigantic moon-headed guy that would play the piano in a tuxedo singing about McDonald's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
Terrifying, but awesome at the same time. I mean, I loved him during the day, but sometimes at night I would close my eyes and try to go to bed, and I'd hear the TV in the living room, and I'd hear him sing, "Where the clock strikes 6:30, time to head for golden lights," and I'd pull my covers up on my head. Please don't let Mac Tonight come into my head and come into my house and eat me.
Well,
I had problems.
Going back to old 80s kitschy stuff. Yeah.
There's so much more we could get into.
All right. Do you remember the Glydian?
No. What was that?
Levi's commercial. Okay. It was like a dinosaur-like creature. You can Google it.
The Glydian, like paint?
Yeah. Similar to that. It was just one of their kitschy things that they would use to sell jeans. It was the early 80s.
Let me see if I can find this Levi's character 80s, because I typed it in as the other thing, it didn't come up. I don't see anything.
All right.
One of our friends from the Ham, Matt, recently posted a picture of Captain EO. Michael Jackson as Captain EO holding those little creatures. Remember those little creatures? And I guess they sold the stuffed ones at Disney World, and everybody was all about those. What stands out to you, Matt Costa, as an 80s marketing character?
Oh, I don't know. I always, I don't know, those McDonald's commercials with the Ronald McDonald and like the Fry Guys and all the characters from McDonald's that they don't really have anymore.
Like Birdie?
Right. Yeah.
Some of them really fell by the wayside. You know, like some of them stuck
Mayor-
around
like
for a couple of years.
Mayor McCheese.
Mayor McCheese really fell off the map.
Nobody talks about him anymore.
No, I mean I still vote for him every election, but just everybody else, like the fry. Like if you went to like one of those old McDonald's playlands and they had the fry guys that you could ride on, you know, the ones that like you sat on them and they rock back and forth.
Yep.
You would look at them and be like, what is that? That's a fry guy. Well, what the hell is that a fry guy? If I found a furry blue thing in my fries, I'd throw them away.
Right.
Or at least complain to the manager. But I think the McDonald's characters died off when they introduced the McNuggets in the little box. I think that's when they kind of jumped the shark in terms of McDonald's characters.
Yeah, that was kind of freaky because you ate those.
Right.
And they had eyes.
Mm-hmm. The other things weren't things that you ate.
Right.
I mean, Mayor McCheese, but
maybe
you weren't
the
gonna
fry,
eat.
but the fries that's just like their hair. I don't know.
I should probably look this up, but I would love to know the origin of Birdie. I think she came about with McDonald's breakfast.
Yeah.
But still, there's actually going to be a movie coming out next year called The Founder, in which Michael Keaton will play Ray Kroc.
Okay.
And they're going to tell the story about how he basically stole McDonald's from the McDonald brothers. So that should be pretty interesting.
I heard that the origin of Grimace was that they used to put a gumdrop in the Happy Meals.
Oh, really?
And that was the toy, and that they
So you got a
developed
disgusting
character.
grape
So he's supposed to be a
purple
gumdrop. So I don't know if that's true or not.
That's the best explanation I've ever heard.
Or if we're going to be going down that road, food stuff. How about the Noid?
I was just thinking the Noid. The Noid actually was...
and the 7-Up Spot. Both video games.
But the Spot, I think, was kind of a forced thing.
Mm.
You know, like, the Noid kind of was kind of an unexpected success.
Yeah, you couldn't avoid the Noid.
Right. And I think, like, people weren't expecting the Noid to become this big thing. It just did. It was organic. I always felt the Spot was being pushed on us.
Yeah.
Like the California Raisins, they were like, it was very organic at first, the California Raisins, but then they really started jamming them down your throat when they had like California Raisins like cassette tapes,
right?
Which was really just a bunch of like no-name people singing cover songs of classic '60s hits.
I think I thought they were real. I thought they were a real group.
I think I might have too because I know I had the cassette.
Yeah, I had a couple.
I remember listening to it on my Walkman.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I got exposed to a lot of the great '60s songs, was by hearing them as performed by the California Raisins.
And they had a Saturday morning. Was it a cartoon or a claymation or?
Yeah, they did. They had a Saturday morning show. Yeah. Well, they actually gave them like a holiday special.
Okay.
Because when I'm thinking Christmas, I'm thinking raisins.
Right. Yeah.
So they gave them a holiday special, and that led to them having a regular Saturday morning cartoon. But I mean, it wasn't always just like created mascot characters. Sometimes it was like real life people. Kind of, sort of. I mean, who can forget Ernest?
Right.
Ernest. A lot of people don't realize that when they're watching Ernest Goes to Camp, Ernest Saves Christmas, and all that, they don't realize that Ernest actually started off as a pitchman in commercials.
Correct.
And was it
Zuzu? Joe Zuzu?
Oh, I know
Joey Zuzu.
But I think it was Christie's was who originally hired Ernest
P. Worrell.
Yep. And with this whole, hey Vern, I always wanted Vern to like step out from behind, and like show himself on camera. And that show, by the way, if you go back and watch Hey Vern, It's Ernest, it's still brilliant. All these years later, it's still brilliant. But yeah, there was Joe Isuzu,
Bartles and James,
which he was played by David Leisure, who was actually, at that time probably best known for playing one of the Hare Krishnas in Airplane. I mean,
Airplane.
But then he went on to be on Empty Nest and everything. Who were some of the other really good characters?
Like I said, Bartles and James. Those two.
Were those characters? Or were those
No,
legit
I believe
people?
they were characters. Yes.
And the Pepperidge Farms guy, of course. Matt, you want to say it?
Because Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Adam says that all the time. My son is 10, and he says that all the time. From Family Guy, more than anything. Trying to think of some of these. Well, let me do a little Google search here and see what else we can come up with. See where the talk descends to when we...
Yeah, we're left to our own devices.
Kool-Aid Man, but I mean, I think he came about well before that.
Oh, you 60s.
Let's see. I'm looking here. Advertising pitchmen in the 1980s. I just want to see pictures. I don't want to have like whole stories about their backgrounds and all that stuff.
Spuds McKenzie.
Spuds
yes.
McKenzie. What
Yes.
a great call there. So yeah, we had Joe Isuzu, we had Bartles and James, Ernest P. Worrell. Let's see. Oh, Bill Bixby for Radio Shack. Oh yeah, Paul Hogan doing the Foster's commercials. Yeah, Crocodile.
Yeah.
That's how he ended up. He originally did promotional things for Australia, and that's how Crocodile Dundee came about.
That reminds me of the Cheerios Hulk Hogan commercial.
Yeah. What about John Machado Jr., the Micro Machines man?
Yep.
Once my
Right?
goal in life to talk faster than John Machado Jr., but never came about. Let's see. Jack Black did a commercial for Pitfall?
Yeah, when he was a kid.
That's pretty interesting there. See, this is what happens. We're gonna go down this rabbit hole. We're not getting out of here now until like 2 a.m. because we're just gonna be going over all these old commercials. But let's see the 10 creepiest product mascots. Well, they list the Noid as one of those. I don't know if I would call the Noid creepy. I actually think that he's a pretty decent character. I'm gonna start at the beginning of this list here. If anybody wants to call in with any creepy or memorable Pitchmen characters, you can give us a call, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. See, the show started off really good, talking about Ghost Asylum, and then we talked about the Martin Luther King assassination, and then we talked about Max Headroom, and now we've lost some of that, air of intelligence, and now we're just talking about TV commercials. But the Dairy Queen lips, does anybody remember those?
Yep.
I don't really remember that.
Was the Energizer Bunny, was that 80s or
That's 90s. Yeah, that's 90s. The Michelin Man. Let's see. The world's first Ronald McDonald. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that he ended up buying a van and parking outside the play place.
Actually, I think the original was arrested for certain things, wasn't he?
No, I think the original was Willard Scott.
The guy that played him on the commercials.
No, the original first Ronald McDonald was Willard Scott, the Today Show weatherman. He was the first Ronald McDonald. It even says it here. He was the first, now known as the guy with the Smucker's jar. I don't know what that's about. I don't see Smucker's commercials. I don't think
because I think on the Today Show.
Did he?
He always promoted Smuckers.
Oh.
It was after he wished like the old people a happy 180th birthday or whatever.
Because I don't think
have some Smuckers.
I don't think I've seen I think the last jam or jelly commercial I saw was, "Will you please pass the jelly?" So that shows you how much. Let's see.
You don't really need advertising with jelly or jam. It kind of sells itself. It's
yes.
like it's
like bacon.
They're all the same. They just taste like sugar and a little bit of fruit.
Right. It's the pectin that brings you back every time. The pectin. Let's see, the Kool-Aid Man. I've never really felt like the Kool-Aid Man was creepy. I thought he was pretty awesome, especially in the 80s when he got the high tops and the.
By the way, I now stay away from raspberry preserves.
we had one of the Mountain Dews that has artificial flavoring in it, and Jen
that's all of them.
Jen was like, "Don't you tell him where that comes from. Don't you tell him about the beaver ass."
Oh, colostrum.
The Noid is number 5. The Hamburglar is number 4. I don't think that the Hamburger was ever creepy.
Did you ever see the original?
No.
Okay, look up original Hamburglar. He was a scary looking. It was not like this little kid looking thing.
This guy here?
I'm not sure if I can see it. Very creepy looking, sinister. He was definitely.
Oh, I can't wait for things to load up. Yeah, he definitely does look a little creepier.
Yeah.
But the one that we came to know in the 80s, he didn't seem like he was that bad of a guy. He just seemed like a big kid. Jack from Jack in the Box.
Hey, he is creepy.
The only person I ever knew that liked Jack was is Todd Sheets.
Yeah.
That's just his insane love of Jack in the Box. The Quiznos, what are they? Spong monkeys? Those really weird Quiznos things?
Yeah.
Those are creepy. And number 1, the Burger King King.
But that's more modern. That was in the 80s.
Yeah, that's the modern King. Not the 70s cartoon King that they used to put on the bibs.
Yeah.
that used to, even though you were like 12 years old, you still put on the bib when you went in there and put on the crown and acted like a goof. But
by the way, were we, not to keep going back to McDonald's, but were we talking about the McDonald's cookies?
McDonald Land cookies, yeah.
Yeah.
We were
And
talking
how
about them
delicious
last
they
week.
were?
Yes.
Yes, all right.
Yeah, Stephanie had never had them, right?
I forgot that they had different boxes. You had the original chocolate chip, you had
Yep.
the hamburger, Ronald McDonald, and the Grimace one. I don't know if they were different or if they were just same.
And since we only have 2 minutes left, and I wanted to come and bust down the door here at WBSM and take to the airwaves about this earlier, but because we only have 2 minutes left, I'll do it. I am outraged by the fact that the Fairhaven Taco Bell no longer has breakfast.
Really?
Yes. I went over there with the intent of trying the biscuit taco.
Right. I was really excited for that one.
Because they got rid of the waffle taco. I wanted to try the biscuit taco. I went over there this morning to get some breakfast. I saw that all they had on the breakfast menu was the AM Crunchwrap and the Grande Scrambler. And I was like, whatever. I'm here. I'm hungry. Let me just get an AM Crunchwrap. So I ordered a sausage AM Crunchwrap, and they told me, oh, I'm sorry, we don't serve breakfast here anymore. New Bedford and Dartmouth have it, but not Fairhaven.
It's like closing for Florida.
I don't understand it. You've been promoting this for weeks. This biscuit taco, and why all of a sudden now I'm here for it, you don't have it. Can you just make me one anyway? Do you not have the ingredients?
I'm going to tweet Taco Bell right now.
Tell them that you're outraged?
Yep.
Well, now we've taken it to the airwaves, so now it's a movement.
Yes. Taco Bell is very all over Twitter. So
Hashtag bring back the bell. Bring back Bell breakfast. Hashtag bring back Bell breakfast at the Fairhaven location. Right now, all the kids at work, they were listening, and they're like, screw you guys. We're tired of coming in here at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning. You know how much nicer it was when all we had to do was come in and make burritos? They're like, come on over at 9:30. We'll make you a sriracha quesadito, whatever those things called. I don't know, but I'd love them. Speaking of which, it's time for the show to end. It's time for Moniz to go over and get his tacos.
Sure.
So plan on him coming over there, Taco Bell, in just a moment. Next week, again, I'll be at Salem Con. There's still some tickets available. If you go to mghparanormal.com, you can get your tickets to come out to Salem Con. And, of course, the upcoming Saturday night will be a recorded version of Spooky Southcoast, but we still will have a show for you as well. Then we'll be all back live. Well, some of us, whoever can make it, will be back live the following Saturday night with another great program. We'll be here all summer long. We won't be any preemptions coming up this summer. So stay tuned for plenty of spooky fun. Until then, we want you all to stay spooktacular.
New Bedford news, New Bedford talk. This is WBSM New Bedford, streaming worldwide on Radio Pup and WBSM.com.
From ABC News, I'm Jim Ryan at the NCAA men's basketball.
New Bedford news, New Bedford talk. This is WBSM New Bedford, streaming worldwide on Radio Pup and WBSM.com.
Loss to the Wisconsin Badgers. The lead would change a dozen times through a 40-minute tug of war in front of 72,238 fans here at Lucas